Okay, good evening. Thank you for coming. And happy pre-Purim. It should be a really happy Purim for all of the Jewish people. Okay, so we'll focus tonight's class on Purim. If anybody who's listening online would like to, or wherever you're listening to, would like to take the dedication of this class, it's available. I didn't have any time to look for or search for a sponsor, so anybody that would want, it's a floating sponsorable class. Okay, let's hope it'll be a good class. So let's see. We're going to learn something on the Megillah today, meaning that it's Purim, so this will be the parsha of the week, the story of the Megillah Esther. Anyways, we know in the story of the Megillah that Achashverosh made this big party. He made two parties. First, he made a big party for all the governors and ministers of all the 127 provinces that were under his rule. And after that, he made a special grand feast for the people of Shushan Habira, the people of the capital. He invited everybody. At that feast, it says that the king got a little drunk. It was on the seventh day, and he summoned his wife Vashti to come. He called Vashti to come. The Megillah says that Vashti refused to come. And after she refused, it says the king was really, really angry. He was burning with anger. Not only didn't she come, but as Rashi said, she also insulted the king. When the pasuk says, "V'chamas vayiktzayf hamelech ma'oid," the king got very angry, Rashi comments, "Shashochaloi divrei genai." She sent him words of shame, of insult. She says, who do you think you are? You used to clean the stables in my father's, you were the stable guy, the man in charge of the stables in my father's kingdom. And now you're looking to shame me? That's what she said to him. So he got really angry. And what does he do? So the king goes ahead and takes the issue, takes the question, the situation to his, council, to the wise men. This is the way it would work when the king needs to consult with something, those who know the law. So he consulted with them. Rashi says, what does that mean? That this was like a trial. You needed to do a mishpat, you needed to do a trial to see. You have to put it in front of those who know the law. It would seem to imply that there was this great question over here regarding the law, which is very problematic, because it's very, very clear that she broke the law. You can't defy the king's orders. If the king says and commands, you have to listen. And that's even a law in Jewish law based on Torah, which is Torah's chesed. Our Torah is a very kind Torah. And yet, we appreciate and we understand the concept of a king who has absolute authority and sovereignty. And if a person doesn't listen to the king, it doesn't make a difference in what sense they didn't listen. If the king told a person that he has to show up tomorrow with red shoelaces, then that's the way you have to come, with red shoelaces. If you don't listen to the king, even if it's a small, minor thing, the king has a right to put the person to death. And that's, again, even in Jewish law. How much more so when you're dealing with these empires that were, they're not following a Torah's chesed. Kings that were tyrants and so on and so forth, that it's only normal that you don't listen to the king. The king doesn't have to hold a trial and get because there's no question over here. It's clear. She didn't listen to the king. So what was the question at hand that the king had to ask the people? Especially adding to what we said in Rashi. Rashi says that what got him angry, what got the king really angry, Rashi says, was that she insulted him. Why is it only that the insult gets him angry? Just the mere fact that she's not obeying his order should make him angry. Rashi derives from the Megillah that it's because she insulted him. Who says? She didn't come, so he got angry. To further strengthen the question, what does the council say to the king? What do the wise men, the judges, what do they say to the king? They say she should be executed. But the reason they give that she should be put to death is not because she defied the king's orders and she was a meredes b'malchus. She rebelled against the king. The reason she should be put to death, the pasuk says, is because she's going to start a feminist revolution. Is that the women are going to rebel against their husbands. The women are going to, she embarrassed her husband. It's going to become something that all women are going to do. They're going to say, well, even Queen Vashti, the wife of the king, defies his orders and makes a mockery out of him. And therefore, women all over the world will revolt against their husbands and be disrespectful to their husbands. And therefore, her crime is unforgivable. Why is that the reason? What happened with the simple rule that the king's word is a command and it must be obeyed? There are mafarshim that give some answers to the question, but the question is, how come in Pshutei Shel Mikra, in the simple pshat, Rashi doesn't even make any mention regarding such an obvious question? What's there to debate? What's there to debate? So to understand this, let's go back a little bit and appreciate the nature of this party. And when we look a little deeper into the nature of the party, we see why this was a question. Earlier in the story, it says that when it describes this feast, so in Perek Aleph, chapter 1, verse number 8, Pasuk Ches, it says, V'hashsiya kados, that the drinking was according to the law. Ein oines, that no one was coerced, no one was forced. Kikein yisad hamelech, because that's the way the king has established. That's the way the king had, let's say, laid the foundation. I'll call Rav Beisai and all those in charge of his house. La'asos kirtzayin ish ve'ish, to do like the will of every person. Basically saying that, no one was coerced into drinking. Now, if we take a look at the words over here, so we're going to see Rashi says that there used to be parties. At that time, the custom was that there were parties in which people were coerced to drink. They used to have a big cup, and everybody had to drink and finish the cup. So here it was different. No one was forced to drink. Okay, we'll get to that soon. The wording is strange over here. It says Vahashziya Kados, which is, I'm sorry, it says Kikein Yisad Hamelech, because this is how the king has established. Even when you read the words, this is how the king has established on all those in charge of his house. The whole wording is a little, doesn't go. Simple words. Kikein tziva hamelech. Al kol Rav Beisai. So the king has commanded. It's a far better word. Kikein tziva hamelech. This was the king's instructions. This is how the king instructed the party. Why does he use a term, Kikein Yisad HaMelech, the king had established? So Rashi actually says that Yisad means Lashon Yesod. It means foundation. So the king laid the foundation. Koloimar king Tikein. So he instituted Vitziva and he commanded. Okay. So it takes Rashi a little while to build up that when it says the king established or founded, that founded, Yisad means foundation, which means institute, which means commanded. You see how the struggle we have in order to fit it in the verse? Why not just say, so the king instructed? Yes, we can kvetch, we can squeeze it in. That Yisad carries within it the meaning commanded. But we find later in the Megillah, for instance, when the king commanded that everybody should bow down to Haman, It says, Kikain tziva loi hamelech. So the king commanded to him. But over here it says, Kikain yisad hamelech. What is the reason why the Megillah uses such a term, yisad hamelech? The king laid the foundation. And then when it says, Al kol rav beisai, who is this instruction to? The instruction is on all those rav beisai, all the big guys, all the big, the bosses of his house. So let's see what Rashi says. Who is this instruction to? That they should not coerce anybody. Who is the instruction? The instruction is, Rav Beisai, Rashi says, Al kol sarei hasuda, all the people that were in charge, all the ministers of the party, all those ministering this feast. Who are they? Sarah Oifim, this is the guy in charge of the pastries, right? The baker. Sarah Tabachim, the one in charge over the meats, the butcher. Sarah Mashkim, and the bartender. Now, what are we talking about in this pasuk? We're talking about specific instructions regarding drinking. There was no limit in drinking. They didn't have an alcohol limit. You can drink yourself to a drunken stupor, no problem. But the rule was that we're not forcing anybody to drink. Okay? We don't force anybody to drink. Because the king wants it should be optional. Drinking is optional. If that's the case, so who's talking about the baker and who's talking about the butcher over here? Why the baker and the butcher? And even though Rashi probably derived it from this that the pasuk says, Al kol rav beisai, that he's instructing this, the king gave this instruction to all those in charge, which would seem to imply it's more than one manager. If it would only be to the bartender, so it should be. I mean, obviously there must have been many waiters pouring wine, but there was one guy in charge. It should have been said that he instructed one minister. The fact that it includes many, so we have to say the instruction came to more people. Even if we're going to say that's why Rashi is including the baker and the butcher. But number one, who should have been listed first? Even if for whatever reason it applies others. The order in Rashi should have been, what should have been the order? First, the bartender. And if you want to say the baker and the butcher as well, add them as well. Again, what is the verse speaking about? What is the pasuk speaking about? About a regulation regarding drinking. It's inclusive. The verse is inclusive. So we include also the baker and the butcher. But more than that, at least regarding the butcher is not even by the party. You know, he's in the warehouse, in charge of the meats. He's slaughtering the animals. I say the baker is there, maybe making pancakes for the people that are at the party or whatever. So that at least he's at the party. He's there. The bartender. So therefore, it would make more sense, like the Evan Ezra says. Rav Beisai means Gadol Beisai. All the guys, all the people in charge. And then it would be simple. Who are the people in charge? All those that are there at the party, and all those that were in charge of managing what was happening at the party. That they shouldn't coerce anybody. Why does Rashi tell us about a baker and a butcher and emphasize these two ministers, that they're included in this instruction? And the answer is, Rashi is very precise. Rashi's reading the pasuk very carefully. And when he's looking in the Megillah, he's bothered by something else. When the pasuk wants to tell us, okay, it's a detail of the party, and let's say it's an important detail. You need to know that the king wanted everybody to be happy. There's no coercion at this meal. Can't force anybody. So why does the pasuk have to say it in such a long sentence? It should say very simple, Vashsiya kadas, or rather, vashsiya ein oines, the drinking, or you can say kadas ein oines, is according to the rule that no one is forced. Why? Ki kain tziva hamelech, because so the king commanded. That's it. There's a very, very, very long and ongoing sentence over here. Why? Why is no one being coerced to drink? Because so the king has laid the foundation. Now, kol rav beisai, on top, to everybody that's in charge, lasais to do kirtzain ish ve'ish, according to the will of everybody. Make it simple. Doesn't even seem like such an important rule. Doesn't even seem like such an important. I mean, not that maybe it's an important rule, but it doesn't seem like it's such an important description that is required for us when we're reading about the party to know about. Even if you feel it is important to know about this, that no one was forced to drink, and for whatever reason that's an important element that should be put into the story, fine, say it in a half a sentence. What's this whole long description? From this, Rashi derived that the non-coercion regarding the drinking was not specified for drinking. It's not that the king specified a special rule regarding the drinking, that the drinking should not be coerced. Rather, Achashverosh wanted a party where everybody gets what they want. That's the party. So it's obviously because everybody gets to choose what they want. So when it comes to drinking, they have their own preferences. They want to drink, what they want to drink, how they want to drink, and so on and so forth. And that's why, even though the pasuk emphasized drinking, we'll see in a moment why, but it's not about the drinking. Again, from the long sentence, we see that this is coming to tell you something about the general attitude at this party. What was the attitude at the party that the king has established? And that's why it doesn't say he commanded. Commanded is one particular person, the bartender. It's not the bartender. It's a general attitude regarding this party. The king wanted to please the people in the city. And therefore, all the people in the capital can come to the party and everybody should be happy. And he commanded it to all the people. Then who is Rav Beisai? All the people supplying and making the party. They have to provide for everybody what they want. So Rashi tells you, the baker, the butcher, the bartender, and since the main element of a meal is not the drinking, the main element of a meal is the food, which drink comes along to the food, but the main element of a meal is the food. Rashi puts the baker and the butcher before he puts the bartender, because that's secondary. Because again, this is not directed towards the department, towards the alcohol department. This was directed regarding the entire party. What was the direction? Direction is everybody gets what they want. So the butcher needs to know if the person wants it medium rare or medium or well done, right? You have to supply it. What kind of meats they want, right? The baker needs to know. The person wants white flour. They want whole wheat. You have to supply whole wheat. You want gluten-free. Gluten-free. You want vegetarian. Vegetarian. Garlic bread. So garlic bread. Every tip, poppy, sesame. Whatever they want. The choices were there because the whole idea of this party was that everybody should come and it should be whatever you want. Kirtzain ish ve'ish, it should be according to the will of everybody. And that's the reason that we mention all these ministers, because it was their department to supply a party, to make it in a way that it has all the variations for everybody, what they want and what they need, and so on. But now the problem is, this doesn't really answer the question fully, because the problem is as follows. If this is a general rule regarding the entire party, which by the way, as I mentioned earlier, this is the reason why it doesn't say tziva, it says yisad. It's the foundation of the way the party is run, right? It's the way he established. It's a general attitude regarding the entire party. The question is, if that's the case, how come the Torah, the Megillah, has to tell it to us by the drinking? Why does the Megillah say that the drinking was, if it has nothing to do with drinking? It is something overall, an overall instruction regarding the entire Sudas Purim. That wasn't Sudas Purim. Sudas Achashverosh. Regarding the entire Achashverosh party. Regarding the entire Achashverosh party, the rule was that everybody gets what they want, satisfying the people. So what's the emphasis of Harshiyah, that the drinking? And more, if the Torah would have told us, or if the Megillah would have told us, just the second half of the verse, okay, V'yisad HaMelech, the king founded Al Korav Beisai, according to all the instructions, Lashis Kirtzayin Ish V'ish, you do what every person wants. Why would we think the drinking is any different? No, you don't even have to tell us at all, because why would that be different than the rules regarding the rest of the party, which was to satisfy everyone? So all we need now is just the second half of the verse. The Yisad HaMelech, and the king has founded Al Korav Beisai, according to everybody in charge of this party, Lasis Kirtzayin Ish V'ish, that everybody should be satisfied. And if that's the case, finished. So we know that no one is forced. What's the element of Arshiyah Kados that by drinking, the pasuk says this, and this will be understood. And another thing, this will be understood by, when you take a look at Rashi, I mentioned it earlier. When Rashi says on the words Vaharshiyah Kadas, and the drinking was Kadas, according to the rule, as I mentioned earlier, that Rashi says, Lefi sheyesh sudais, because there are meals, shekoifen as hamesubim lishtois kli gadol. There are meals where they would have a custom that anybody that comes, they fill them up a big, huge glass of alcohol and they have to drink it. There are people who can't drink it, and they're usually wouldn't attend many of these parties anymore. Ki and Bakushi, it's very difficult for them. Avokan ain't oines. But over here, no one was forced. Okay, that's what Rashi says. Now, question is, where did Rashi take this over here in the pasuk? See a kadas, ein oines. Where do we know that there should be an oines? So Rashi says because there were meals like that. And where do you see that in the pasuk? That there were meals that simply is because, or else why would the pasuk have to tell you ein oines? Why would the verse have to tell you that no one is being forced? Why would we think that anybody would be forced? Why should someone think that? And secondly, what is the emphasis on this word Varsiyah Kados? Varsiyah ain't oines. And the drinking, no one is forced. So there were two things in this pasuk that kind of led Rashi to the understanding that ordinary parties way back then in Persia, there were many, it was a custom to force people to drink. Because if it wasn't a custom to force people to drink, why would the Megillah have to tell us that no one is being forced? Why would we think that there should be any coercion? Secondly, what is the emphasis of the word kados, according to the rule? But now we understand why it's kados. Why it says kados. And we realize, if you look Rashi carefully, we realize that we're reading it totally wrong. Till today, I never read it like this. We read it Varsiyah Varsiyah and the drinking, comma, Kados, like the rule that, what's the rule? The rule is ein oines, that no one is being forced. That's the rule. That's the way we usually read it. If you ever paid attention to the Megillah, v'ashtia and the drinking, the king established a rule, kadas, that the rule should be, das means the rule. What is the rule? What is the law? Ein oines, that no one is forced. But that's not the meaning. Because then you don't have to say that. Then you doesn't have to say the word kadas. V'ashtia, and the drinking is, ein oines, no one is forced. What it means is like this. Since there were many parties in those days in which they did force people, that is the das. That was the law. When they had parties, the rule, the custom, the way people conducted themselves, the das means the established rule, the way it was by parties, was that they forced people to drink. Over here, the king gave special instructions that we should not follow the rule of drinking. So we have to put the comma differently. Here carefully. V'ashtia kadas, the drinking according to the rule, the common accepted rule of drinking is that everybody has to finish the cup. Ein oines. Over here, no one was forced to follow that rule. Not kadas is the rule is that ein oines, that no one is forced. V'ashtia kadas, the drinking which is according to the rule, which is that you do have to drink the entire big goblet. Oh no, over here not, ein oines. Here, no one was forced to comply with the drinking regulation or the drinking rule or the drinking custom. And that's a chiddush. It's a chiddush, it's a novelty that the king nullified or removed that drinking rule. Because we would think that by the king this rule should apply even more. That drinking custom, when we think about this party, and we think about the purpose, seemingly, of the party, it would seem that the drinking rule should be applied, even more so by the king. Let's understand what kind of ridiculous rule that is. Why are people forced to drink? It's because when someone made a party, everything was to show their wealth, to show off, to show how wealthy they are and how great they are. And how they have no limits, they have so much. And wine is pouring like a river. So in order to emphasize that, we wanted a lot of wine to go. You see a lot of empty bottles. Look at this guy. He's non-empty the wine supply. So everybody that came had to drink a huge thing. You came, you drank, and then more, just to show. It had nothing to do with the recipients. It had to do with the person throwing the party, so that he can show everybody his enormous wealth and how his supply is limitless. If no one drinks, what are you showing already? Right? So that's why there was such a rule. Now, if we think about Achashverosh, who we read about it in the first party that he made, why did he make the party? Laharoisa. What does the pasuk say? Why did he make a party? Baharoisa, he wanted to show off as share his wealth, kvoid malchusai, of his glorious kingdom, the esyakar, and the splendor and the preciousness, the feres gedulasai, of the splendor of his greatness. So that was the reason he was showing off. So all the more reason, especially since he's the king, he's not a regular person, that everybody should come. He has to show his, and the pasuk actually says, V'yayin malchus rav. There was a lot of royal wine. V'yayin malchus rav. If no one is drinking, what is he showing? So there would be reason to believe that what? That over here, there should be even stronger that rule. And especially since it was already a custom. The king had to go now by this party and specifically rule out this rule. No, he didn't do it specifically regarding this rule, but he had to do it by when he emphasized that the party should be kind of free for everybody. It was a specific revoking of this custom. That's why the pasuk, even though this was a general rule regarding the entire party, it's emphasized dafka where by the drinking. Because by drinking is the one aspect which we would think is an exclusion. Over here, you should have to drink. And maybe even the king's instructions not to do it wouldn't even be able to stand. Because we know the rule, and that's in Torah, there's such a rule, Melech shamachal al kavoidoi ein kavodo machal. That a king cannot forgive or look away for his honor. A king must be given the respect and the honor due to him. And if he decides that, I don't care about my honor, then we can't listen to him. We still have to honor him. We still have to respect him. We disobey him and give him honor. And the reason for that is because if he's going to let down on his honor and his respect, he loses his power. So by a king cannot forgo on his honor. So it would be room to believe that people have to drink a lot of wine so that the king can show Yayin Malchus Rav how much wine, the royal treasure, how much they can supply. What's the king's supply? So we would think that it should stand. So the pasuk says, "Vashti akados," the drinking with the rule. That's the chiddush of the Megillah. Einoines was removed, and Einoines, no one was forced. Why? So that's why the pasuk says, "Kikein Yisad HaMelech." The word Yisad is very, very important over here. It could not say Kikein Tziva HaMelech, so the king commanded that the party should be according to everybody's will. There's something much deeper. Yisad means it's fundamental. It's the very foundation. What's the idea of the very? It goes much more than what I said earlier. Earlier I said because it's a rule applying to the general party. It wasn't only applying to the bartender. That's the reason why it says Yisad, he established. But it still could have said Kikein Tziva, he commanded. The fact that it says he established is emphasizing something much stronger. What is it emphasizing? That the entire foundation of the party was different than all the other parties where they force people. And the reason is, this party was not about the king flaunting his wealth. That's not what this was. That was the first party. The first party, 180 days that the king made, and that was a crazy party. Think about it, make a party for 180 days. That's because he wanted to show his enormous wealth. It's like to show, non-ending. And he had what to show for 180 days. He had what to show. It was all about him showing his wealth. The second party was because he wanted to avoid assassination, right? He basically wanted to have a lot of friends and that everybody in the capital should love him. It was about the people. I mean, obviously that too was about him, but it was about the people. He wanted to satisfy the people of Shushan HaBira, make them happy campers, make them happy citizens. And therefore, this was a people-pleasing party. This was not about him. Since the foundation of the party was that everybody should be pleased, so there's no room for in such a party to force people so that they can see how wealthy he is. If the underlying feature of the party, the underlying cause or the underlying drive of this party was to flaunt his wealth, then of course this rule would have applied. So the king had established fundamentally regarding the entire attitude of the party that what? That lases kirtzain ish ve'ish. He wants it to be done according to everybody's will. And therefore, the Megillah tells it to us regarding the drinking. Because there it's the biggest chiddush. Because there the allowance of people to choose whether to drink or not goes against the style or the custom that was of people that made parties. But over here this emphasizes how much this party was here to make everybody happy. Once we have that understanding, so now we'll understand regarding Achashverosh and Vashti. That when Vashti didn't come to see the king, why the king had a question. And why it wasn't just a non-brainer that she should be executed, because she didn't listen. Since this story happened at this party, the whole underlying current of the party, the whole attitude, the whole foundation of the party is to make everybody happy, and therefore everybody can do whatever they want and be like you have it your way, not my way. So it would make sense that when the king calls Vashti and he asks her to do something, and she's uncomfortable doing it, that she should be able to refuse. And in a sense, Vashti could argue that. What's her argument? Well, the whole party was made in a way to make everybody happy. When no one is forcing you to do so and so, you're coming and enjoying yourself as you see fit, as you like it. So therefore, when the king is asking Vashti to come, and she doesn't feel comfortable doing it, she has the full right to say no. And in a sense, by doing that, she is fulfilling what the king said. That's the king's instruction regarding this party, that you do what you want to do. So by her refusing to come, she was actually doing what the king said we should do at this party. That's why there is reason that she shouldn't be killed. But there's also reason on the other hand. Why? It's possible, number one, that this particular instruction to Vashti is not part of the party. Party means all the stuff, the regular party. The king is calling Vashti to come. It's not behaving, what you're eating, or so what your diet at the party, what you're eating. That's not it. Which band you're listening to. That's your preference. This is a separate thing. First of all, it could be it's not part of the party. Number two, it can be that since it was a specific instruction of the king, counter that his king is asking for something particularly. It overrides the freedom that we let everybody. In other words, this that we say everybody can do whatever they want is that there's no general rules of you have to do this or you have to do that. But when the king asks for somebody to do something specific, the person is not exempt just because the party is a free party. Because the king is asking someone to do something specific. And thirdly, this people-pleasing, this, I feel already Purim day, that's okay. This people-pleasing situation was for the people of the city. Doesn't necessarily apply to the members of his household. It's a different story. The point of pleasing everybody was to the members of the city, his citizens. Vashti is his wife. It's a whole different story. So these are the reasons why it's a question. So the king presents it to and therefore when they answered the king going back there, they didn't say because she disobeyed. Because maybe that was not good enough reason to kill her. Maybe she had to be punished, but not to kill her. Because there was, her lack of obedience in this case was pretty justified. Based on the attitude of the party. So Mamuchen gives an answer. Well, the way she disgraced the king and the way she spoke and she's causing this rebellion. So therefore she should be punished. And she was punished. That's the explanation on the Megillah. But we know that the Megillah has deeper layers, right? So on the one level, the Megillah is talking about the story of an ancient story that happened in Persia. About 2,500 years ago. But then we know that the Megillah also is, whenever it says the king, it's referring to Hashem. Whenever it says HaMelech. And in this verse where the pasuk is describing the way the party was instituted, there's something very, very deep, very fundamental in regarding to the entire story of Purim. Regarding Purim, we spoke about this many times, we are told that the novelty of Purim, the greatness of Purim, aside for the miracles, aside for the defeat of the wicked and Jew haters and the fact that we Jewish people were saved, but what's very, very important about Purim was it's the completion of the acceptance of the Torah. And why do we have to complete the acceptance of the Torah? Because there was something lacking at Har Sinai. When we accepted the Torah by Shavuos time, and Har Sinai, there was something lacking. What was lacking? The Gemara says that we were forced. God had held a mountain over our head. So we were coerced in taking the Torah. But on Purim, there was no coercion. And the Jewish people accepted the Torah full of joy and happiness. So I think the halachas gedolos and the sheiltis point out, mamish, that Shavuos, that Purim is like, it's like the day of Shavuos. It has like that same element of Shavuos, which is Kabbalah Satorah, because it completes the acceptance of the Torah. And that is reflected in this party. The king is calling the people of the capital. The king is the Eibishter, is God. The people that are animtzim b'Shushan Abira are those that are Am Karovo, his nation that is close to him. Who is his nation that is close to him? The Jewish people. Yidden are Am Karovo, the Eibishter's close people, and he's inviting them to a party. What's the party? The party is to partake in Torah and mitzvahs. Because Torah and mitzvahs is called a lot of times compared to food. And it's very, just like food nourishes us, Torah and mitzvahs nurture our soul and nurture us on many, many levels, on all levels. So God is inviting us to the Suda of Torah and mitzvahs. But the uniqueness of the Purim situation is, unlike Shavuos, when there was some kind of a coercion, that God is holding the mountain over us, whether it means in the literal sense that Hashem is forcing us with a mountain, or according to the Chassidic interpretation that we discussed many times, that Hashem was compelling us with his tremendous love. We couldn't say no to him because he was putting too much love pressure on us. It was just impossible for us to say no. He was so kind to us, he was so glorious and so wonderful that we couldn't say no to him. Whatever the interpretation is going to be, but we were compelled. On Purim v'hashsia kados ein oines. On Purim, the Eibishter is calling us to partake in the Torah without being forced. Why? So this is what the king really desires. The Eibishter at the deepest, really in his inner heart of hearts, doesn't want a Jew to learn Torah and do mitzvahs because he feels forced to do it. The Eibishter wants us to do it willfully from our own choice, that we are choosing to be in a relation. Yes, we are choosing to obey him. We're not talking about a lack of obedience. Obedience, but why are we obeying? Because we chose to obey him. And why are we choosing to obey him? Because this is our deepest desire. And that happened by Purim, which we didn't have in Judaism before. Until Purim, there was an element of coercion. There was an element of some kind of a force. And that's why the Yom Tov of Purim is such a great Yom Tov. And that's the reason why, why is it such a great Yom Tov? Is because this is the ultimate satisfaction of the Eibishter of Hashem in our Torah and mitzvahs. Until Purim, God's satisfaction of Torah and mitzvahs is incomplete. But his real joy of Torah and mitzvahs is when the Eibishter sees it's coming from us. In a sense, we can say, this is mainly what I'm saying till now is a talk from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but the part that I'm adding on my own, maybe it's correct. In a sense, we find that now in the times that we're living in, more than in the past. There was a time when there were certain social pressures for people to keep Torah and mitzvahs. When Jews were like living in ghettos, Jews were kind of living in the shtetl, you didn't have much option. Today you have a lot of option. Of course, there's still certain social pressures, but the options are far greater for people. It's really, really a matter of your own choice, of your own, how much Yiddishkeit you want to put into your life, how dear is the Torah and mitzvahs to you. It's a whole different world today. Everybody's given the ability to choose, but this is the ultimate tainuk, the ultimate pleasure, when we choose without any threat. It's not a threat of punishment or this or that. We feel that, thank God, life for people are good. And we don't always necessarily see that if we make the right choices, things get better. Or if we make the wrong choices, things in our life get worse. Obviously, it's true, but it's not necessarily what we see. And God forbid we can be let me put the phrase different. A person can be very successful, even if, God forbid, they're not necessarily doing all of Torah, mitzvahs, and the like. And that sets the tone for what? For a Purim vigor acceptance. One that we do out of love, one that we do out of our own volition, understanding, appreciation. And this creates the ultimate simcha by the Eibishter, the ultimate joy by the Eibishter. So much so that it translates into such a happy Yom Tiv like Purim, in which that flow of wine of Achashverosh, that flow of wine, which was a negative wine of Achashverosh's drunkard wine, is transformed into the wine of Torah, the great secrets of Torah that are going to be revealed when Mashiach comes. And the great flow of Yayin, as it is on a Purim meal, a holy wine of Purim, in which the joy of Purim, as we know, is limitless. Because all Yamim Tovim, we know, they used to send, the Beis Din, the courts used to send out guards throughout the communities to watch that the festivities should not get out of hand. Like they have in Yerushalayim, the Vad Mishmeres Atznius, the ones in charge of the modesty police. So this is an old tradition. It's not like something that started only in Meishar. I don't know if exactly they follow exactly the rules of the tradition, but the way it was that the Beis Din used to have a certain, just to make sure that people are behaving. But on Purim, that doesn't exist, because Purim, you're told, Ad lo yoda, no restrictions. It's unbelievable. And why? Because the joy is limitless. And why is God so happy? Why are we so happy? Because the Eibishter is so happy on Purim. And why is the Eibishter so happy on Purim? Because here is when he truly gets nachas from us. And why does he get nachas from us on Purim? Why? Because Kikein Yisad HaMelech, the king now said, Lasses Kirtzayin Ish V'ish, that our observance of Torah and mitzvahs, our participation in this party, should be in accordance to what you want. I'm not compelling it on you. I want to see your heart. And that makes Hashem very happy. So one thing we want to conclude, we want to tell the Eibishter, that the Ritzayin, if he wants to do Lassos, if the Eibishter wants to do Kirtzayin Ish V'ish, according to the will of every person, the will of Ish V'ish, of every single one of us, is that we should already see the Shor HaBoyer and the Leviathan and the Ayin HaMeshumar. The will that we have is that we should have the ultimate party. That's our wish. All the luxuries of America and all the delights that we have today is not doing it for us. It's a nice party, but it's not doing it for us. What we want is Kiritzayin Ish V'ish, is Kikein Yisad HaMelech Al Kol Rav Beisai. We want to hear the Shofar Shel Mashiach already, and we want a complete and total and full redemption. A very happy Purim to everyone.